More trouble for Rowley as he and several of his ministers are expected to appear before a High Court judge next month as he considers whether to grant an injunction to former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith to prevent the publication of the controversial firearm user's license. More trouble for Rowley as he and several of his ministers are expected to appear before a High Court judge next month as More trouble for Rowley as he and several of his ministers are expected to appear before a High Court judge next month as he considers whether to grant an injunction to former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith to prevent the publication of the controversial firearm user's license (FUL) audit report in Parliament. The order for Dr. Rowley, former Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi, Ministers Fitzgerald Hines, Coleman Burt, Stuart Young, and Marvin Gonzalez to appear in court was made by Justice Devinder Rampersad on Friday. Griffith has sued the PM and his ministers, as well as retired police officers Wellington Virgil, Raymond Craig, and Leonard Charles, who formed part of the audit team. Rampersad also granted Griffith permission to pursue his judicial review claim against the Nine for setting up the audit committee to investigate the firearms unit of the police and depriving him of natural justice while also considering laying the report in Parliament. Rowley and the others will have to appear before the judge on November 9th, when he will consider whether to grant the injunction Griffith has asked for. The former top cop also wants the court to order the PM and his ministers to disclose the names of the members of the audit committee and grant declaration power to appoint the committee. Griffith is also asking for the quashing of the report or any part of it that concerns him. The injunction he is asking for seeks to prevent the committee and grant declarations that the decision to commission the report infringed his rights and was illegal, unlawful, and irrational, since they did not have the power to appoint the committee. Griffith is also asking for the quashing of the report or any part of it that concerns him. The injunction he is asking for seeks to prevent the report from being published or laid in Parliament. Griffith, who served as police commissioner from 2018 August 2021, is represented by senior counsel Avery Sinanan and Larry Lala. He said from his experience as a former national security minister he knows neither the Prime Minister nor the National Security Council had the authority to appoint anyone to investigate the operations of the police service, so he was concerned about the legality of the appointment of the audit committee. He also says he is concerned that the contents of the report and the process used by the committee were irretrievably tainted by bad faith and illegality because the Prime Minister has no power to appoint such a committee, and because of statements Dr. Rowley made after Griffith announced the launch of his political party and his decision to reapply to be top cop. Griffith also fears publication of the report or any part of it would expose him to public ridicule and, if laid in Parliament, would protect Rowley and the media by qualified or absolute privilege from defamation claims for damages. The former top cop contends he was the target of the audit because of the timing of the appointment of the audit team. In my respectful view, the committee being appointed in November 2021 and I having left office of cop in August 2021, the investigations of the committee were directly relevant to and necessarily involved the manner in which I would have exercised my discretion and discharged my functions under the Firearms Act during the time that I held the office of the cop.
Yes, indeed. Pleasant good night to all and sundry. Yes, indeed. Money all over the place being spent on frivolous and clearly in too many cases not to be concerned, vexatious and attempts, of course, to cover up, utilizing our money, the people's money, the citizens' money, taxpayers' money, while, of course, this marauding bunch of opportunistic political parasites led by Dr. Keith Rowley, who has jetted away to some far-off Middle East country, claiming that he is, of course, participating in some CARICOM initiative, but at the same time talking about visits to other parts of the globe, and without telling us, and clearly utilizing resources our monies willy-nilly, helter-skelter, higgledy-piggledy, as if it is his private parlor. And what is worst, the benefits to be derived, whether he holds, of course, a symposium here for curriculum heads at our expense, and claiming that somehow a crime is a public health crisis, a public health matter, that we must, of course, engage in his foolishness. We have to ask the question where the money has gone, and where the money is going is over 60 or thereabout $60 billion we are talking about for that has been budgeted for 2024, and the amount of course of disconnect, the amount of incongruence, the amount of disparity, the amount of disconnect between the resources allocated and the benefits to be derived. In other words, the cost benefits analysis. There seems to be a huge disparity. A huge disparity. And of course, we are going to learn tonight, because here it is, Rowley has jutted away. We have, of course, a cybercrime issues where people's data have been hacked and stolen and provided, of course, on the dark web for ransom. For us to get it back, we have to pay. And the fact that it is out there, all kinds of elements can use it, including possibly medical and others, because we are not hearing about TSCT alone. We heard about the Northwest, of course, Regional Health Authority. They have been hacked as well. And of course, private entities as well, I understand, such as courts, have also been hacked. What is happening? And Dr. Rowley going to tell us, as if he is totally disconnected to the reality of Trinidad and Tobago. He's going to tell us recently that, of course, Trinidad and Tobago should become a cashless society. Only talking thing that he believes people want to hear. That is the only conclusion one can draw. Because if it is, you cannot protect what is in cyberspace that is supposed to be protected by those institutions that we trust and we deposit our information in and with, especially those of the state. And now we are hearing that there is a Israeli-American company that has been recruited, that has been deployed at our expense to provide, of course, the necessary firewall, the necessary anti-hacking systems to avoid incidents of this kind. And of course, at center of all of this, as this has been brought to the attention of the public, is TSTT and of course its entire management, but at the highest level, Lisa Agard, and of course the misinformation and disinformation, and of course non-information, silence at the prospects and the reality of this particular unsavory and unacceptable development. And what we simply hear is that she in effect has been fired, even though the public statement is that she has left. But clearly it's not only she has to leave, but the entire board of TSCT must go because of the clandestine nature, the attempt, of course, to hoodwink the population, because in the beginning they told us that it was a minor glitch. And today, of course, on the ground report, we extrapolated and we, of course, brought that particular matter into perspective. And I think it is behoving on us on the corridor transformation to follow suit and to, of course, give a perspective to this development. Because if you are asking for a cash-free society, it cannot be a hairy-fairy, uncoordinated, not well thought out a policy and or program to address the very issue. But of course, we know Dr. Rowley is a total and absolute Neanderthal. A Neanderthal is a caveman. I wasn't able to put it together tonight, but certainly I'm going to do it for tomorrow night. But Dr. Rowley said in no uncertain terms that he's not comfortable with the information technology. He still like to, of course, write his check. He still like, of course, to go and deposit his money in the bank physically and have the paper money in his hands. And that is a man who is now talking about, of course, a paperless society, a cashless society. Well, as most people would have observed, he meant it literally. Trinidad and Tobago is in fact already a cash-strapped and a cashless society. You and I are unable, of course, to keep cash, because as soon as we get some kind of money in the form of salaries or some kind of contract remuneration, it is quickly dissipated. It quickly disappears in the form of higher price of goods and services, higher transportation costs, higher costs for a vehicle to purchase if you need one to, of course, aid you in your movement to and fro, work, leisure, etc., family. Whether it be for, of course, the construction of a home or the renovation thereof. Whether it be, and we see that too often now, not to be concerned, where schools every week are asking for some kind of activity that requires a $5 or $10 every week. And why, like Rowley and they, as they impose, of course, property tax, the minimum, as I said, for a little caboose is $500. You can't go below, because once your place is valuated for $18,000 and below, you have to pay $500 a year. It doesn't matter whether you're squatting or otherwise. And they would see that because they are insulated, isolated, and living, of course, in their own cocoon, and will not see that it has an impact on fixed salaried people who have to pay higher electricity rates, higher water rates, a higher cost of transportation, higher cost of books, higher cost of uniforms, higher cost of footwear, higher cost of even detergents, and of course things for sanitary purposes, clothing. And we cannot, of course, leave out, but of course identify it as separate. Food, whether it is, of course, the raw material that you will put together in order to create a meal at home, or you go, of course, to the fast food outlets or other places of a business, whether it's restaurant, whether it be roadside vending, and you want, of course, to partake in, of course, what is the multiple dishes and or offerings of these institutions or these businesses, to eat, to consume, to, of course, nourish your body, the price there as well have escalated. So we are in dire straits. And while that is happening, Rowley and they are playing games. And no doubt Saudi Arabia, where he's off to now, has a lot of golf courses. But more significantly, Rowley has told us when Kamla Prasad Bisesa was in government between 2010 and 2015 that she was jetting off too often, and sees that as profligate conduct. He sees that as profligacy, waste. The man does not have a conscience. He's unconscionable, as he is evil, wicked, nasty, and believes that he can come back and go and impose further hardship on the people in the way I mentioned earlier, and no consequences. Well, we as a people must gather not only the dark clouds, not only circle our wagons in defense of our democracy and defense of our children and our children's children, but we must be on the offensive. And so it is critical to understand why it is, and we appreciate here on the corridor transformation Gary Griffiths, of course, action in the courts, as I have. As you know, I've sent him, of course, a pre-action protocol letter. When he comes back, the court documents will be ready. When he comes back, he called me, Rowley, a liar. I haven't, of course, called him for years, a rapist and a pedophile. And I say that when you send me directly or indirectly letters and take action by persons purporting to act on Dr. Rowley's behalf, you are telling me that I'm a liar, and I have a duty and responsibility to protect my good name. And so, of course, those documents will be greeting him when he comes back from wherever. And of course, one must commend Gary Griffith, on the other hand, for his own action that he has taken to defend his name and his reputation as a police commissioner, and of course his legacy, his integrity, his efforts at national service by these what my mother liked to call Norarians, a bunch of incompetence, a bunch of total ne'er-do-wells, a bunch of criminals that have invaded our government and is riding roughshod against the people with devastating, destructive effect, agenda, purpose, and execution. Let's go back to what is happening in the courts for a better appreciation as to where Gary Griffith is and where the court is also at in terms of generating justice in this country, as Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC have done, in terms of protecting us from this marauding bunch of opportunistic, political, aggressive mafia parasites, and of course miscreants and of course a total and absolute rapscallions who have commandeered government and believe that somehow they could get away with it. Not in 21st century Trinidad and Tobago, not in enlightened Trinidad and Tobago, not in information technologically savvy Trinidad and Tobago, not in AI, artificial intelligence Trinidad and Tobago, not in cyberspace efficacious Trinidad and Tobago, not in, of course, the proliferation and the ubiquitous nature of what? Yes, of social media, as is the case tonight. They must be exposed, but more than that, they must be taught the lesson of decency, a commitment, dedication, and patriotism. And fallen short, the population will have nothing less than appropriate behavior and relevant behavior and sincere behavior and transparent behavior. And therefore, if your conduct falls short, as the Rowley Administration has, and he is prepared, of course, to lead in, of course, offending the nation, offending the population, offending against fundamental laws, whether it be against the criminal justice, the criminal laws of the country, or the moral and ethical principles of the country, and believe he can have his way irregardless. And as I said, you hear the buffoon hinds saying that somehow PNM will win the elections in 2020. That damn fool, worse yet, living in a fool's paradise.
More trouble for Rowley, as he and several of his ministers are expected to appear before a High Court judge next month as he considers whether to grant an injunction to former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith to prevent the publication of the controversial Firearm Users License (FUL) audit report in Parliament. The order for Dr. Rowley, former Attorney General Faris El-Rawi, Ministers Fitzgerald Hines, Coleman Burt, Stuart Young, and Marvin Gonzalez to appear in court was made by Justice Devinder Rampersad on Friday. Griffith has sued the PM and his ministers, as well as retired police officers Wellington Virgil, Raymond Craig, and Leonard Charles, who formed part of the audit team. Rampersad also granted Griffith permission to pursue his judicial review claim against the Nine for setting up the audit committee to investigate the firearms unit of the police and depriving him of natural justice, while also considering laying the report in Parliament. Rowley and the others will have to appear before the judge on November 9th, when he will consider whether to grant the injunction Griffith has asked for. The former top cop also wants the court to order the PM and his ministers to disclose the names of the members of the audit committee and grant declarations that the decision to commission the report infringed his rights and was illegal, unlawful, and irrational, since they did not have the power to appoint the committee. Griffith is also asking for the quashing of the report or any part of it that concerns him. The injunction he is asking for seeks to prevent the report from being published or laid in Parliament. Griffith, who served as police commissioner from 2018 to August 2021, is represented by senior counsel Avery Sinanan and Larry Lala. He said from his experience as a former national security minister he knows neither the Prime Minister nor the National Security Council had the authority to appoint anyone to investigate the operations of the police service, so he was concerned about the legality of the appointment of the audit committee. He also says he is concerned that the contents of the report and the process used by the committee were irretrievably tainted by bad faith and illegality because the Prime Minister has no power to appoint such a committee, and because of statements Dr. Rowley made after Griffith announced the launch of his political party and his decision to reapply to be top cop. Griffith also fears publication of the report or any part of it would expose him to public ridicule and, if laid in Parliament, would protect Rowley and the media by qualified or absolute privilege from defamation claims for damages. The former top cop contends he was the target of the audit because of the timing of the appointment of the audit team. In my respectful view, the committee being appointed in November 2021 and I having left office of COP in August 2021, the investigations of the committee were directly relevant to and necessarily involved the manner in which I would have exercised my discretion and discharged my functions under the Firearms Act during the time that I held the office of the COP. Griffith said from November 2021, when the committee was purportedly appointed, to July 2022, he heard nothing about the committee until the Prime Minister revealed he was the high-level government official who met with the ex-chairman of the Police Service Commission, PSC, Bliss Seepersad, at President's House. That led to the August 2021 merit list for the post of COP being withdrawn. Griffith said the information the Prime Minister admitted to giving Seepersad, which led to her not submitting the merit list to the President, was never revealed to him. He said it was only after he announced the formation of his National Transformation Alliance, NTA, party that the Prime Minister spoke of the audit report, saying it made for disturbing reading. At the same media conference, Rowley said the executive summary would be laid in Parliament, but everything else would be sent to the PSC. But Griffith said he was never presented with the report, nor did he have the privilege of seeing it, although it was leaked to the press, allegedly to tarnish his name. His lawsuit also mentioned statements Rowley made about Griffith at a political meeting after the contents of the purported report were reported in the press. In the circumstances, I feared that unless restrained the Prime Minister was intent on laying the executive summary or other parts of the report in the Parliament, thereby causing direct, unjustified, and unquantifiable damage to my reputation and good name. He also said he wrote to the new chairman of the PSC, retired Justice Judith Jones, and the Office of the Attorney General on making public the audit report without giving him an opportunity to see it and respond to it. The PSC, he said, assured him it would observe the principles of natural justice both on the contents of the report and the recruitment exercise for new top cop, while the AG's office gave the impression that the Prime Minister still had control over the report.
Well, of course, in a nutshell, Griffith is not satisfied that the Prime Minister will honor his commitment based on the instructions of the court to not lay the matter in Parliament, but of course to provide copies of that report that he, the Prime Minister, said that he initiated because he is head of the National Security Council. So he gave himself operational functionality. This dunderhead. What does Rowley know about policing? Which academy he went? What qualification that rockhead, that dunderhead, that of course, what he is? A geologist and a volcanologist. When you could only talk about rocks and one understand why he is so inept and so steep in stupidity and arrogates unto himself because he holds the office of Prime Minister, and because that automatically, by virtue of his office, provides him with, of course, with the responsibility of looking at the security of the country, because one of the functions of any government is to secure the people, and we have seen that we are totally exposed. We are on our own. In fact, whether you call it vigilante, whether you call it, of course, self-preservation, the fact of the matter is that this government has abandoned the society, the citizens, and that the criminal elements, those who are engaged in blue-collar crime, home invasion, robberies, carjacking, hijacking, and we can go on and on, total disrespect. And now They're brazenly killing people in front of police stations, as was the case only a couple of days ago. And so when, of course, there is an advocacy to give people who qualify their own arms and ammunition in order to protect themselves, he is offended. He suddenly has some kind of self-righteous indignation and has, of course, has respect for life. That has to be the argument. What life you have respect for? When, of course, during COVID, you asked everybody to go to Tobago, and it was, of course, an opportunity for mass spread of that disease, COVID. And then, of course, you tell everybody, the senior citizens in particular, you have vaccines, come out and go to the various centers identified. And then, of course, there were no vaccines. And as a consequence, people started to die like flies. And he still have the audacity, the temerity, the gall, the effrontery to come in our faces and say, no other prime minister had the opportunity to, of course, deal with a pandemic. And so you must give him political consideration. I say, hold your tail, get the hell out. I must give you my house to build. You take my money. You put down no foundation. And even if you put down a foundation and you put up some pillars, they fall down because you use soap water to, of course, mix the concrete. So it could never dry. It could never be solid, and it could never achieve the objective of retaining or maintaining a superstructure. And you're telling me I must give you a next chance? Rowley and the rest of you, get the hell out sooner rather than later. Because, of course, the population will exact their revenge. The population will exact their revenge. But let's get back, of course, to the issue here. So the court has given that order that Rowley must not disclose in the way that he wanted to, because he said he was late in Parliament, only to expose and to, of course, insult and degrade the character and personality and the recognized good performance of Gary Griffith as Commissioner of Police. Well, the court said they will have none of it. As a result, Rowley go on and appeal that matter. Well, what you heard there just now is that Gary Griffith has taken further action. Because you see, during the course of the delivery of that verdict, to circumscribe, to emasculate, to limit Rowley's ability to use that report, a report commissioned by him, by people who he selected, whether they were previously attached to the police or as officers or as retired officers. He commissioned it, and he tells us that it is reeked with concerning and troubled reading and issues. So it is clear what the intention is with that statement. An innuendo, a misleading statement, or an attempt, of course, to generate a conclusion by putting into the public space and into your and my head coined and deliberate words, phrases and sentences that could only draw one conclusion. Why would you say that it is troubling reading? Why? Because he wants the population to have a vitriolic and a disquieting view of the former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith. That's all. That's that. Was that? That's what it is all about. A doctoral, of course, well known for his pernicious and his excoriating and evil statements to humiliate and to downgrade and to sully and to disrespect the good work of people, their character and personality. We only have to look at what he has done or attempting to do to Kamala Prasad Bisesa, but no evil you generate and create and manufacture against good people will never suffice. Rowley, your ass is grass. People, of course, don't forget the lines. The lines are open, of course, 337-6940, 337-6940. And, of course, if you wish to assist us with our Christmas hamper and, of course, a toy drive, well, 336-6594. 336-6594. The numbers are there. So, you can, of course, avail yourselves, but I think it's important, of course, to treat with this. Let me conclude by saying, because I promised to, of course, look at solution from a perspective of where it is not expected, and Rowley and they will totally disregard because they don't believe that places like Laventille has the capacity to, of course, generate its own solutions to the fundamental issue in Trinidad and Tobago, to the crime and criminality that has eluded Rowley and his gang of criminals, co-criminals, with billions of dollars are being spent over the last 8 years. But I say, and you know, Laventille and these places have given the country its national culture, steel band, calypso, and we can go on. Yes, it is on Laventille that the very PNM, which of course he has commandeered, he has hijacked, the very PNM, its survival depended on Laventille for being loyal and keeping the PNM in the parliament consequential of the 1986 general election. They don't like us to talk that talk. But Laventille ought to have owned. Laventille owned the PNM. They wouldn't like you to say that. They wouldn't like you, of course, to acknowledge that fact. But you in Laventille, man, disappointing. There are no leaders to, of course, capitalize on that. The PNM existence under their presence in government and out of government is as a result of the loyalty of Laventille. And you don't know that you have to capitalize on that and generate the kind of respect rather than the disrespect and the poor attendance and the poor delivery, and every day is some kind of castigation. So the Belmont station is considered to be part of that general socio-economic, psycho-cultural reality. Not because, of course, it's his name Belmont. It doesn't have the same socio-economic and psycho-cultural experiences as Laventille proper, or the appellation or the name that is given, of course, to that area that we know as the Hill, and of course as Success Village, Beetham, Sealats, etc. No, all of those areas, whether you want to give it the name Eastport of Spain, or you want to give it Laventille, or you want to give it Beetham, the socio-economic and psycho-cultural dynamics and realities are the same. And it is also consistent, it is also parallel with the fact that these areas have given to PNM more than the PNM has given to them in terms of loyalty and commitment and getting a new lease on life and an opportunity, of course, to be in government. And when they get there, they betray this. I am not concerned at this point with the rest of the country, you know. I am not concerned with the rest of the country. I'm concerned with the fact that the PNM owes these communities from Diego Martin right up to Arima on the east-west corridor not just a debt of gratitude, particularly the Laventils east and west, but what we have seen is that instead of being grateful and instead of demonstrating that with the resources that are available to the country and in the treasury and in the various government departments, whether quasi or direct, what we are seeing is a plethora of betrayals after betrayals after betrayals, and a notion, a consideration, as Heinz said, that we are suckers for punishment, PNM punishment, and that they expect that with all of the punishment that would have been meted out over the last 8 years to get back in office, and that we will continue to vote for them. I say to them, your ass is grass. No human being take that level of punishment, or no animal, not even plants, take that level of punishment in perpetuity. You see, the first law of survival is self-preservation. Let me repeat that. The first law of survival is self-preservation. And the people of the east-west corridor from the Gobatin right up to Arima, I think they would have learned that the hard way, and that you do not repose your trust in people who you expect to reciprocate your loyalty, commitment. You haven't, of course, kept them in office longer than most. Everybody has abandoned the PNM, but the east-west corridor retained them, as if, of course, it's common as blinking your eyes, it's common as speaking, it's common as breathing. And then Rowley and they can arrogate unto themselves some kind of massa, some kind of slave massa relationship, where they whip us, not with, of course, a physical whip, not with that kind of flagellation, but with the psychological whip, utilizing, of course, and coining words, true orative expressions to tell us stay the course, and you are impaling us with a dagger in our hearts and telling us every opportunity, every day for the past 8 years and even before that, that everything will be all right. But you're pushing that dagger into our hearts and telling us that will be our salvation. Whether you push it or whether you take it out, all of us know now that we will die if we stay on that evil, diabolical, wicked, treacherous, and dangerous train. Let's go straight, of course, to your calls. Pastor, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Mr. Smith, good night, sir.
Good night to you.
I recognize my first time call.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. Welcome, man. That's all right. That's all right. Yes.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to hear what this judge have to offer to Rowley and them. Serious. I'm telling you. I can't wait. I know something coming. Something is coming. We can't take all this wickedness for it. No.
Yes, man.
I tell you, we can't take all this wickedness.
Yeah, it's
I wanna Angie regular caller from Locketa. My car Angie for Clyde from Locketa.
okay. All right.
Yeah, that's me. So I'll be locked on and listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very. Yeah, it can't continue so. That is
No, I
mad
tell
people.
you.
Yeah, it's kind of betrayal. Yeah.
Not wickedness.
Yes. You're quite right.
I hope Mr. Griffith walk away with a victory.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he will. I have no doubt in my mind. The
Yes.
evidence is clear. The evidence is clear. What they will do.
Yeah, he was treated.
Yeah.
He was treated unfairly
Yes.
by this wicked man.
That's right.
And the man like he just don't care. He just he could just do what he wants.
Yeah. And you deposit a fellow like Hines who is equally uncaring on the people,
Yes.
and telling us that he not responsible and he not responsible. And when it's convenient, he throw in little anecdotes to tell us, well, listen, this one have a car that the police looking after and so on. Always for some political benefit as opposed to the interest of the people. Yeah. They must stay in office.
I am a good friend, Miss Sandra Cruz, and I
haven't heard her as yet. Let's say as yet. I'm sure that she's listening and she will come with something as she normally.
Yeah, I just love to hear that really. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, she and Miss Woodbrook. I like to hear the contribution to that.
Yes. All right. I will. Thank you very much. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Thank you very much for calling. And of course, just a note. I don't care whether you're on green verb, yellow verb, pink verb, stink verb. It doesn't matter. Once we understand what you are saying, you pick up the phone and you call us, or whatever device that you're using. This is not about how you speak and the appropriateness of it in terms of the language and the formation of sentences and so on. No. Talk how you talk at home, how you talk on the streets, how you talk in the market, how you talk at work, etc. And we will, of course, accommodate. You see, every single citizen must now take up the gauntlet and the challenge that has been put down by this administration, having regard to its incompetence and its perfidious nature, total and absolute betrayal, perfidious. And therefore, all of us have a duty and responsibility. All of us. Tobago has demonstrated for the skeptic and those who believe that somehow Rowley and them have some kind of formula to emasculate and to prevent the people of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly along the east-west corridor. They have some kind of spell. I say to you that is a fallacy. That's a fantasy. There's nothing sacrosanct about them. There's nothing sacred about them. And if they are devilish, if they are satanic, if they are Luciferian, then you know that evil could never prevail over good. You know that. So there's no need to be perturbed. What you need to do is to get to the polls, every one of us, knowing the evil that prevails, particularly over the last 8 years, and treat with that matter once and for all. Get rid of them, jettison them, expel them, annihilate them, and let them be relegated to the dustbin of political history in this country. This cannot be the destiny. It cannot be countenanced by any reasonable and sane and a patriotic Trinbagonian. So of course you can call 337-6940, 337-6940. And of course, if you want to assist us or you want some kind of assistance, once we have the capacity so to do, as we do on the ground report, then you can call, of course, 336-6594, 336-6594. You can call my assistant, of course, and she will, of course, right now, if you wish, and she will, of course, do the necessaries. Those are the individuals that you are seeing there just above Rowley, that the court has said, come to me and tell me where you get the power to organize an investigation of the police, since in law the police is the one to investigate all matters of a criminal nature. Where you get that power, Rowley? The court has asked them to, of course, come. Let me just give you, just in case you just joined us, what this is all about. And so it will be a wonderful exercise to see how they really operate and who they really are. Divest all of the facade, all of the propaganda, all of the charade that they will engage in, pretending to be intelligent, pretending to be having command of the English language. Let them go before the court and let's hear this bunch of nincompoops who in normal circumstance cannot string a good sentence together. They can't even call on this program because they simply cannot talk and articulate. But of course, something that somebody might have written for them, they would read. At least give them that. But I'm not so certain, having regarded to the fact that Rowley spelling fact, F-A-C-T, F-A-X, and then of course he talks about, of course, dotting the T and crossing the I. That fella Rowley. So birds of feather flock together. Show me who you associate with and I'll show you who you are. Well, that is the collective of this bunch of opportunistic political parasites. And people who came in with reputation such as Amor turns out to be a total and absolute mendacious or liar in front of an international court. I don't understand how Dr. Rowley is so inclined. He have a predilection, like it is in his DNA, to only recruit criminals, miscreants, and people who will engage in exploitative behavior and of course disrespect the rule of law and the laws governing good government, governance, transparency and accountability. Let's hear, if you just joined us, what 9 of them have to go to court for, including those fellas that you're seeing there and Rowley.
More trouble for Rowley as he and several of his ministers are expected to appear before a High Court judge next month as he considers whether to grant an injunction to former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith to prevent the publication of the controversial firearm user's license (FUL) audit report in Parliament. The order for Dr. Rowley, former Attorney General Faris El-Rawi, Ministers Fitzgerald Hines, Coleman Burt, Stuart Young, and Marvin Gonzalez to appear in court was made by Justice Devinder Rampersad on Friday. Griffith has sued the PM and his ministers, as well as retired police officers Wellington Virgil, Raymond Craig, and Leonard Charles, who formed part of the audit team. Rampersad also granted Griffith permission to pursue his judicial review claim against the 9 for setting up the audit committee to investigate.
Yes, indeed. To investigate what?
The firearms unit of the police and depriving him of natural justice.
Yes, that is what he did. And in the first episode that caused the same judge to grant an injunction injunctive relief, it is called, against Rowley from presenting the report that he commissioned with, of course, former police officers, Craig and Virgil and another one, from being presented in the parliament as a public document so he could be protected. He wouldn't come and put it outside so Griffith could sue his tail. No, he wanted to put it in the parliament so he get protection of parliamentary privilege. Well, of course, Griffith and his lawyers and his advisors clearly would have been up to it. And I wondered when that would have happened, because the same judge in the first matter said in non-certain terms, if the matter of the legal right, the legal source, the legal authority to form such a committee to investigate the police, if that matter was before him, he would have summarily say that that was illegal. So now Griffith and they understand that, and now they have put, of course, that matter in court now, where 9 of them have to go and answer who would have been the beneficiary of the should I say the investigation, beneficiary of the investigation in terms of being recruited, and who gave the authority and from where they got the authority to, of course, investigate the police. Where they get the authority to investigate the police. Essentially, that is what it is all about, people. And while that is happening, you have, of course, Hines being, of course, and Dr. Rowley totally confused, flummoxed, discombobulated, in a state of enigma, but projecting, of course, some kind of relevance and some kind of insane sanity. You know what I say insane sanity. It's an oxymoron. It's a contradictory statement built in. But that is only how you could describe it. Insane sanity. And of course, we have seen it in many forms, but never before in this way, where Hines was actually saying something that he concluded with his sleepy disposition, narcoleptic disposition, saying things that simply he probably either didn't understand or attempting, of course, to unnecessarily overdo it in terms of trying to get political benefits, or trying, of course, to appease or to ingratiate Rowley to now to be talking nonsense. Listen to this.
Madam Speaker, as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. Madam Speaker, as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. To regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. And in so doing, we look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse, physical and sexual victimization, and we design policing methods that will equip law enforcement with the capacity to assess and to treat with how these factors are impacting upon victims and offenders. That's where we go in.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley did not declare crime as a public health emergency, That's according to Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines, responding to an urgent question in the Upper House on Monday.
You understand the dotishness? So he just, in the parliament, during his contribution to the debate on the budget 2024, he said, as if we are foolish, and as if we didn't hear him say that the Prime Minister never said that the crime is a public interest matter, and he has the audacity and the temerity to pretend as though he never said it before they apologize. And that is what is very disturbing about these dishonest son of a gun, you know. They're dishonest to the core, and they will not apologize. We saw that all over the place, especially Rowley and a fellow like Hines, who will be taking, of course, his signal from Rowley. Or is it that birds of feather flock together? Whichever way, the fact is that it is idiosyncratic of them. It is almost endemic of them, that all of them will be talking a pile of hogwash and still come in our faces and say something totally different to what they said just the other day, and believe that we are fools and we will accept the new dispensation, the new version of the nonsense that they would have spoken before. On that basis alone, they are unqualified, of course, to be in office. That level of constant bombardment of deception cannot be a democracy made, or a democracy accepted, or people in their right minds as citizens accept. He now saying that the Prime Minister and big talk, when you hear them, you can't believe it's nonsense they're talking. You can't believe it's shit they're talking. You can't believe. Listen to him again recently in the parliament, and then look at him a couple months before, and you will understand the dichotomy, that these people are not just bipolar, they are not just schizophrenic, their duplicitous behavior, Jekyll and Hyde propensity, and their Janus face nature is unfathomable, but a reality, and we must expose them for who they are.
Because as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. Madam Speaker, as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. To regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. And in so doing, we look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse, physical and sexual victimization, and we design policing methods that will equip law enforcement with the capacity to assess and to treat with how these factors are impacting upon victims and offenders. That's where we go in.
Big talk.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley did not declare crime.
So listen to him a couple months ago. Listen to the same Hines. Big talk, hyperboles galore, and with the usual body language of arrogance and contempt, bombastic, and then it turns out to be histrionics, as we learned last night, which is really, as well, theatrics. They're just playing with our heads, so they believe. We have a duty to disabuse and to bring it down to reality.
Crime as a public health emergency. That's according to Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines,
Listen to him
responding to an urgent question in the Upper House on Monday by the opposition. The minister sought to clear the air on the Prime Minister's statement while he addressed the public during a media conference before leaving for Suriname.
But the Prime Minister made no such declaration. I listened to the Prime Minister's communication with the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the world, which is recorded. And I understand the Prime Minister to have said that sometime in the near future, he considered that it might be a useful thing for Trinidad and Tobago to consider that crime and violence be treated as public health issues.
Saturday, Dr. Rowley said violence is becoming too prevalent, and as a result, the public is becoming too desensitized to the issue. This is what he had to say.
And today the time has come for us to declare violence as a public health emergency.
A clear, simple statement. Trinidad and Tobago, the time has come for us to declare violence as a public health issue. This fella Hines goes to the parliament sometime after and say he didn't hear that. Something like what Imbert didn't hear either. Remember Imbert last night? We'll play it for you just to give you a reminder. When he said that Myers, the PS that is now the victim of Rowley's hatchet job, of his, of course, a devious victimization and vindictiveness. A PS in the Ministry of Education. Rowley never spoke about who the person is and what ministry when he, of course, brought it to the public at his press conference. You know, Imbert come in a meeting and say that the Prime Minister was talking about the PS at the Ministry of Education without even an iota to suggest to us that, listen, I am clearing it up. This is what the Prime Minister really was confronted with, and this is what. No! He's trying to tell us that the Prime Minister told us the name of the ministry and of course with reference to the PS. We know, of course, that PS is Mr. Kurt Myers, who has been transferred and was sent, of course, on leave that he might have accumulated. The only problem here, if they had the power, they fire his tail without, of course, shortening his stint in the office that he holds and his benefits. That's the kind of evil we're dealing with. And don't tell me all don't know that is the nature of these evil people. They use power to somehow. There is a German folk expression called Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude, yes. Which of course states that there are people who relish or who feel good and glad and it's as if they're taking drugs. They get a fixation in people's demise, in hurting people. That is Rowley Schadenfreude. That is Rowley, and they get pleasure in hurting poor people. They get pleasure in hurting people who may be of the middle class. They get pleasure in hurting people who may come up against them because they want to be able to impose their myopic and dotish and irrelevance as well as their incompetence on the population. And we must accept that as some kind of badge of significance for them. In fact, we must honor them for doing us evil. That's what Rowley and them have been doing. And don't tell me you don't know about the former governor of the central bank who was at the wrong end of in Bert's pen when he wanted to get an international job, and they asked him for a recommendation as the Minister of Finance, and he sent a letter that was ventilated in the court where he maligned and literally said that Jawala Rambaran, the former governor of the central bank, is incompetent. And the courts, of course, in Trinidad, and they appeal it. They didn't appeal the A.V. Julian matter, but they appealed this one. Jawala Rambaran, the former, of course, governor of the central bank, take Imbert and them to court, and the court awarded him $7 million. They appealed that, but no appeal. When the lawyer for Petrotrin said, "Listen, let's appeal the matter that went before arbitration, that gave back not only the contract to A.V. Julian, Dr. Rowley's, proclaimed, ratified, and of course publicly told us that the owner of that entity is his friend." You understand what we are dealing with here? Do as I say, but don't do as I do. And that I am the mecca and the repository of all immoral morality. Yes, I use it oxymoron tonight. They are the repository of all immoral morality. Immoral. That is unacceptable. That is evil. That is wicked. And it is above all dangerous for a society such as Trinidad and Tobago is, if we are at all to claim to be a democracy. We cannot countenance and continue. These fellas must be eliminated. Fellas and women and girls. Because birds of feather flock together. Let's continue to hear Dr. Rowley and Hines as they contradict each other, and that is the man he has as Minister of National Security. I mean, it is pathetic as it is. As it is. Laughable, ludicrous. And they should attract our contempt and our anathema, our hatred.
But the Prime Minister made no such declaration. I listened to the Prime Minister's communication with the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the world, which is recorded. And I understand the Prime Minister to have said that sometime in the near future, he considered that it might be a useful thing for Trinidad and Tobago to consider that crime and violence be treated as public health issues.
And today the time has come for us to declare violence as a public health emergency.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has declared violence in this country a public health emergency. Speaking at the VIP lounge at the Piarco International Airport on Saturday, Dr. Rowley said violence is becoming too prevalent, and as a result, the public is becoming too desensitized to the issue.
So everybody, the reporters, heard Dr. Rowley say that a very positive statement, positive in the sense that you cannot deviate, you cannot interject anything. Positive here means that is what he said, reported speech, if you want to call it that. He said very clear, the reporter said it, but only Hines is saying something like that. He didn't say that. He didn't say that it's about time that we look at crime as a public health issue. Hines is saying that he never said that. He said it is to be held, to be considered, that Rastafarian dunderhead.
But the Prime Minister made no such declaration.
Listen.
I listened to the Prime Minister's communication with the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the world, which is recorded.
Kimberly D'Souza tells us more.
I think in Trinidad and Tobago the time has come for us to declare violence as a public health emergency.
Unambiguous. There is no trifling. There is no discrepancy. There is no non-clarity. It is conspicuous. But this buffoon, a fake Rasta, is telling us that the Prime Minister never said so, and come back in the Parliament now and getting on as though he was never subjected to the kind of public statement that we are hearing him made or have made in the past about the issue. All he had to do was to apologize and say that I must have misunderstood what he said, and then you go ahead and talk, but don't talk as though you never said so. And of course you're bringing out these what I consider to be stylish and high profile and ingratiating and big talk and policies and programs related to, of course, a crime as a public health issue. Come on, it's about time we get rid of these nincompoops that we have purporting to be ministers, and I dare say purporting to understand the English language. Their comprehension skills clearly leaves much to be desired.
But the Prime Minister made no such declaration. I listened to the Prime Minister's communication with the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the world, which is recorded.
I think in Trinidad and Tobago the time has come for us to declare violence as a public health emergency.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley made the announcement minutes after police responded to a quadruple murder at Damien Bay in Maracas on Saturday afternoon. The victims, who hail from Santa Cruz, have been identified as Karen Pope, Elijah Farrell, CJ Dan and Mincy Boy. Hours earlier on Saturday morning, 3 suspects were murdered following a police shootout in Port of Spain. 2 others are in critical condition. Dr. Rowley said we need to find solutions to treating with violence in our population.
In the home, in the school, on the roadway, public safety and public security, unfortunately, has pushed itself up to, it is number 2, because we still maintain that educating our population is number 1 from the standpoint of budgetary allocation. But from the standpoint of national unease, I would say that this violence, which is a public health emergency, has pushed itself up to the number 1 concern in our country.
No, that in itself. Now, aside with Hines, so we are clear that, of course, he suddenly has jumped on board in terms of this concept of crime and violence being a public health issue. Well, of course, one can mock them by simply asking, well, is it that the fella outside of the police station, should he have gone to the pharmacy and get a tablet? A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Get a tablet.
A pleasant good night to you, Lennox Smith, and everybody on the line.
Pleasant good night to you as well.
Right, Lennox. Right now, I'm a bit angry right now based on the information that I got on the news earlier on tonight, the 7 o'clock news, where earlier now shifting the goalposts in terms of the crime situation. She's now saying that it's the parents and them now have to help with the situation with the children and them and the things that they do and that have to discipline them better. I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago something. A few years ago, my father was alive. A few years before that, he always used to be saying to me and my brother, he said, let me tell you something. Say the problem is not really the politicians so much. Say the problem is the people. The people and them is the problem. Because you see, these politicians and them were doing ill to us. Is not politicians that came from another country to do what it is they are doing. And that time you was talking about a manning era.
Yes.
The politicians and them come from the same society that we all are living in today. Everybody in PNM government, right? I was watching I was there tonight and Lennox. I want to cry when the same way when you be playing a video showing you how these people in them line is the same thing Anna Roberts was doing tonight, and I want to cry because these people in them lying to the population, and the population is what turning against itself. Trinidad and Tobago, the problem is you all. The problem is not Rowley and them. You cannot change a devil for what it is. You have to understand the devil where you're dealing with and turn your back against the devil and go to God. The country need healing. All they need God to step in into all their lifestyle. All their lifestyle is what going and we in this mess today. Change all their lifestyle, change all their thinking, change all their focus. All they're focusing on the wrong thing. The PNM is the problem today and forever. Nothing can change that. You have to get rid of these people and put them in a dungeon 1,000 miles in the ground. Them is the problem. But you, the people, have to recognize it, have a problem, and they have to deal with it. The onus is on you all, Trinidad and Tobago. Come on, man, Keith Rowley, know what is your say when he said the people of Trinidad and Tobago are stupid. He's sending that message to our political group of people. Why if you have to come out and say the majority of crime that taking place is African people? Because they bring them in an illiterate society and they want to educate them, so they keep them in ignorance. What kind of music these young people that's been listening to? That is why Kamala can regurgitate and say empty the clip, because she understands what it is these young people listening to, and still Rowley and them don't get it. But then I can't really blame them. Them done evil already. But the people of Trinidad, they got to understand that they have the ball in their court. Them could issue change. Change has to come, and it will come. Electoral and listening.
Yes, indeed. And I love that intervention because it raises two questions. Well, maybe three. The issue of the onus is on us. The fact that we are having this discourse tonight demonstrates that I am a citizen. I am doing this on my own volition, my own resources. So that is a recognition. And the fact that the young man could, of course, say that on a program like this, it means that it telegraphs, of course, to not only those who are there right now live in their hundreds, of course, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook. I want to tell you one time, Facebook or YouTube. But the fact of the matter is that this is a classic understanding. It is, and I want to say this as well, in relation, of course, to our consciousness that the onus is on us to, of course, generate the appropriate response. And the response can only be in one direction. Get rid of the tail, as the caller rightly said. But you need a basis to do so. And I am saying so simply because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we would not have been able to have this kind of conversation. You see, so the likes of Rowley and the PNM as an entity, with, of course, its idiosyncratic disposition to get into government unmeritoriously and without, of course, delivering whilst they are there, but of course live from election to election and then concoct, manufacture, orchestrate, structure, old talk to deceive us and say what they're going to do. Because you heard Heinz at the beginning of this presentation. Let's go back there, and you could swear that they know what they're talking about and that they will deliver. And we know that is nothing, because in the back of all of that, behind all of that, at the basis of all of that is the fact that we have continuously, consecutively, the highest amount of murders in the country since Rowley came into government, and therefore the PNM. And of course, under this particular minister, we have broken, and we are destined to broken another record as far as murders are concerned. But listen to how they will talk. Listen to how they will sell it to us. And I say that this kind of people initiative, such as the corridor transformation, should be able to, of course, address that problem, not just succinctly, but definitely, and to make people understand that they're taking us for a ride. They are just deceivers to try to stay in office, to do us evil, and of course, utilize and exploit our resources, including financial and material, to their own benefits. But it cannot be anymore, because you would have been warned, you would have been exposed, never before, and therefore your decision to get rid of them is pellucid, clear, conspicuous, and without doubt. Listen to it.
As I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. Madam Speaker, as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. To regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. And in so doing, we look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse, physical and sexual victimization.
You heard him? So you have these, what I consider to be identifiable elements, aspects of the reality of Trinidad and Tobago. They identify it. You can empathize, and somehow they believe that you will gravitate. Let's go straight to the lines. A pleasant good night.
Good night, Lennox. Good night.
Good night to you.
Well, I finally see Lisa Ega lost her job, but she got a handshake and $500,000 a year.
Yeah, handshake and $500,000. Yes, that's right.
But what kind of foolishness going on in this place, boy? It's only in PNM country this could happen, yeah?
Only in Trinidad, PNM country, but only in Trinidad, the people will allow the PNM to do this hogwash, this travesty. But I'm sure it is coming to an end. I'm sure. Nobody could take
the next one she hire the one from CNC3. He get turned too, because I hear that they make up a job for he in some communication aspect of it.
Yes, some community, some elaborate job description. He and all probably know what it is. What you know that attached to it is a huge fat salary.
A huge fat salary, $80,000 a year.
Yes.
For what look this place. Listen, these people are really easy here, you know. A big feeding frenzy going on there.
That's right.
Right? And you see where it costs the country. But nothing wrong with that, right? Everybody living like if they're in London. And then this stupid Heinz come there talking with the Prime Minister and calling this crime as a health issue. Will they get vaccine for that now?
yeah.
These people are easy here, you know. It's only in Trinidad they can invent foolishness like that, you know.
I'll show you that. I'll come to a point, you know what? Yeah.
You know, nobody ever asks them a question, why it is a health issue if they can treat it with medicine or something like that, because it seems to me that they can't treat it with nothing. They will drink bush tea or something with it or something. I don't understand these people, you know.
But it escalated. It escalated, it said.
like COVID run up in their head after they take vaccines, so they say we go treat crime as a health issue, and the British public buying this stupid analogy that Hines and the Prime Minister coming and talking. Yeah? Well then Terrence should have been the Minister National Security and solve everything.
That's right.
Because he's Minister of Health.
Yeah, and he, Hines, join him in health. if it's a health issue, yeah.
Them need to take some serious vaccine, you know. All of them. Because crime out of hand and these stupid analogies is covered, making no sense, and the public and the media buying up these total foolish talk and don't want to have them accounting for this. But the media in the government pocket, as far as I'm concerned, right? Because they're running a radio station there, and that only the Prime Minister just go and show up there and talk, and the ministers on them there. And all of them in go there and ravage on that station, right? Nowhere else they'll go. But they continue to flounder, and we have to pressurize them.
Of course.
Need to pressurize them.
This is part and parcel of that package of pressurization, as you rightly said, in order to get the population to act appropriately in their own best interest ultimately.
I'm telling them like the crapo in the pot in the stove, you know. Yes. The water starting to boil for them. They have to jump out of that pot now.
Yes.
When they see the start to feel the heat, then they go, no, I'm telling you that. The property tax, the light bill, all these things ain't kicking yet. The higher food prices ain't kicking yet. When they see that kicking, then the Trinidadians and they will start to feel the pinch. Until then, they happy like papi. But time go tell us, always tell you that, you know. Have a good day, now.
Yes, indeed. Well, of course, you have been advocating for the firing of IGAD. Well, of course, that has materialized, of course, with a handshake, as you rightly say, and a fat paycheck is called. Of course, I'm sure they would give it a particular name. A parting, should I say, prize? A parting gift, whatever. But the fact is that it is huge, it's expensive, right? And she goes out into the sunset and utilize our money. But I consider it to be blood money, frankly. Once you can, of course, dispossess our children from laptops, take away, of course, food from them, take away, of course, books and so forth, reduce, of course, the scholarship opportunity, and not give them, of course, the credit that is due, consequential of the C exam, and of course at the same time is saying somehow that Indians falsify their certificate when they get it at the level of the university, even though they are the ones that are part of or form the first 100 or so in the C exam, and there is no congruency or no what I consider to be logic, common sense and rationality for that. But of course it's only uninformed population will accept that kind of hogwash from Rowley and they who of course are making excuse for their incompetence, impotence, and the fact that they have disappointed and that they have of course rendered grovel, rendered of course complex, render the ordinary African youth totally confused because they fail, of course, to not only deal with the problem frontally, but mamagai and generate the illusion that, as I've always said, seem to be an acute case of collective, as far as the government is concerned, psychosis. They are in total spontaneously but in disbelief and have a poor sense of reality. But we know that reality or that poor sense of reality is orchestrated, is part of the histrionics to deceive the African community in particular and to have them, of course, continue to vote for them as a vote bank along the east-west corridor, and that must now discontinue. And Heinz's statement there, from moving from the Prime Minister didn't say that to one that he said it, and of course elaborate on it, not only demonstrates the level of madness and of course attempted to deceive our African sisters and brothers along the east-west corridor, but is similar to what Dr. Rowley said recently when he said that, listen, Trinidad and Tobago should become a cashless society, and with that you mean, of course, taking it for its logical, on a logical basis, your utilization of course, of the information technology. But that is the man who, of course, took away laptops in 2015 from the very people who are supposed, of course, to be part of this dynamic and, of course, a paradigm shift that is required, and will go without apologizing once again and to tell the people he wants a cashless. You think it happens just so? That is the level of dotishness similar to what Heinz has done, as we have exposed. They know all of the nice talk, all of the hyperboles. Listen to the policy relating to suddenly a crime as a what? As a public health crisis.
Violence as a public health issue. Madam Speaker, as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced
Big talk.
Directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. To regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. And in so doing, we look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse, physical and sexual victimization, and
poverty, mental health. In so doing, I mean, it is just pathetic and ludicrous. These fellows are comedians. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hey, big man, Lennox. Good night. Good night to everybody.
Yes, good night to you as well.
Lennox, we done cashless already, you know. You have to send the country into that. We don't need the bank. We don't need no app and no nothing like that to tell. We done cashless already.
I mean, these fellas are just fantastically stupid to believe that we will still fall for those kind of hogwash. Pure talk and nothing more. Superfluous and superficial talk.
And that stupid man behind you, he gonna blatant before he come and talk to you to find out what's going on with the youths and him. He gonna be to talk to who, some man named Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, some names, so he gonna be to talk to.
Yeah, yes. He leaves the parliament up and go there and fomenting the disquiet across the country as far as the Russian roulette criminal environment in which we live. Anybody could be the next victim. Anybody,
but two little boy in Bonnet get shoot the other day, yesterday or something and thing.
Yeah.
Two little boy in Bonnet.
Anybody, it just confirms what I'm saying. Anybody. It's Russian roulette we're talking about here, criminal environment. And he goes there and talk that hogwash, trying to, of course, hoodwink those people along the east-west corridor to continue to vote for their own detriment.
Boy, I sometimes I really hope them people up on your side really take wood and try and put them out, you know, because to me really Lavanti, PNM own OD Lavanti area are great attitude.
Of course, debt of gratitude, and instead they pay them back with evil, wickedness, pain, ache, agony, and total deceit.
But with this regime now, Rowley regime, this PNM here, them owe the whole country, you know.
But yes,
The whole country them are shopping.
Yeah.
Nothing are working.
I agree.
Nothing are working. Nowadays, now look, at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, people running in their house. Then nobody want to go and take a little breeze out. No way, nobody. Everybody want to get out.
Self-curfew. But yet still they having, they still go put on the those lights and those gongs and so on for people to come out in the night. But they put on the light. All those gongs are in darkness and in bush, overgrown.
But you mad? Who going on exercise? Who going on do them thing?
They know, you know. But they believe they could talk that, and the population will be hoodwinked once again for the next elections. That and a pink donkey, they will never see.
Oh yeah. And let me tell you something. I believe the people who accept this 4%, like police and all kind of thing, them accept it, but them grinding, you know.
Of
That's
course.
why I say I find I don't see no police nowhere around. Them police and them doing nothing.
Yeah, of course. Why must I engage in extracurricular activity or go the extra mile, and I'm being unfairly treated in circumstances where I have an option, and there is, of course, ought to be fair negotiations, and you have not demonstrated that. And Rowley suddenly has a love for them because they accept the 4%. Yeah, we see the idea that, of course, he threw a PS under the bus. PS Myers from the Ministry of Education, and say that them people want their money and we want to give them it before Christmas, and they want to spend it, and so on and so forth, and we made an arrangement, etc. All of that is to merely look for sympathy, you know. All of that.
Yeah, but the man go come out and talk nothing here, no.
No, well, he can't, and Rowley knows that, and that is why he threw him under the bus. That's why he did that. It's evil people you're talking about who will think nothing to maintain the status quo and believe that they could get back into office. But of course, that is an illusion.
Well, besides our Australia, I like to watch the international news, and I watching the Guyana thing and the Internal Court of Justice throughout Venezuela situation.
Yes.
Where they wanted to have a referendum or whatever and thing, and they said no, that they already have that in 18 something.
That's right.
That was the agreement, but Venezuela said them still going ahead.
Well, let them go ahead. They will suffer the consequences of if they want to be disrespectful, or they want to generate disorder, disruption. Let them go ahead. They will feel the consequence.
All right. Well, tomorrow we go talk. Please,
yes.
Lord. Take it easy tomorrow. You to see that hurry.
All right. Okay then. Bye bye. Yes, indeed, people. So let's go quickly. Of course, I must play tonight. Of course, the solution. I will just play it in musical form because we have not yet been able to. I promised that I would start with it, but of course tonight I thought it was important, having regard to what Rowley said about cashless society and the fact that he jets off to, of course, another part of the world, and of course we have to show the level of hypocrisy and the level of what I consider to be do as I say but don't do as I do scenario when he criticized, of course, Kamala Persad-Bissessar for jetting off. Of course, we could identify the benefits to Trinidad and Tobago coming out of Kamala Persad-Bissessar's trips. What we cannot quantum or qualify is what we have gained by Rowley. We have seen, of course, a total deterioration of our circumstance. If he had gone to Ukraine and of course, don't be surprised. I would not be surprised if he tell us that he went to Ukraine and he caused the war to continue so that we could get the windfall in oil and gas and petrochemical that we are getting at this point in time, or when the war started, because of course of the should I say deterioration of the energy circumstance of the entire continent of Europe. Don't be surprised. That is how these fellas operate. But of course, you know it is phantasmagorical. You know that it is unbelievable. You know that they will come with that, and that is what this is all about. This kind of conversation. Of course, don't forget share. Don't forget, of course, tell a friend, tell of course your enemies, etc. That the corridor transformation is here, and of course will be here. Of course tomorrow, and then of course, on Thursday as well, and we will continue, of course, to do tomorrow, Thursday, and of course don't forget Friday I will not be here. That is my night off, but of course I will be back on Saturday night, and then Sunday morning Dr. Khalid and myself from 8 to 10, and then of course in the night, and the week continues. We cannot afford, of course, to relent. We cannot afford to be complacent. We cannot afford to give any leeway to those who are evil and are prepared, of course, to undermine our democracy in the way that they have, and we need to expose. Listen, of course, to the what I consider to be the hyperbolic hogwash of Hines, having regard to what he said in the past, that no way Rowley, because he must have felt that it's a stupid position to take initially, to call, of course, crime a public health issue, and when he realized that Rowley was serious, as insane as the statement is, he felt that he has to follow suit. So here he is, of course, outlining the policy elements that will comprise this so-called public health issue. I thought they would have said go to the pharmacy and get, of course, some anti-crime tablet that they would have introduced. But don't be surprised in the future. They're mad enough to, of course, tell the population that I want to know if you are so sick to, of course, accept this and any other utterance that they would have made, when the reality is that we are escalating and we are living in a Russian roulette crime and criminal environment.
Abuse, physical and sexual victimization, and we design policing methods that will equip law enforcement with the capacity to assess and to treat with how these factors are impacting upon victims and offenders.
So really and truly, what he has said is precious nothing. He said nothing. Listen to this man again, man. Listen to the elements of it, man, and you will understand. He has said nothing. Crime as a public health. Listen.
We look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse, physical and sexual victimization, and we design policing methods that will equip law enforcement.
How could you design a policing method with those parameters? Listen again. Education, sexual offenses.
We look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse.
Poverty, mental health, substance abuse. How could you design a police strategy to combat that? How, Hines? You have to be a backside. Listen to this man again, man. Listen to this man. This man has gone off his rockers. The very concept itself is amorphous, is asinine.
To regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue.
A big man who's supposed to be intelligent.
And in so doing, we look at the issues of poverty, mental health, substance abuse.
How can the police formulate an anti-crime initiative based on poverty, based on substance abuse, based on sexual violence? How? Their job is merely if a person has infringed the criminal law, their job is to hold them and bring them before the court, charge them and bring them before the court, and hope that they are convicted. The court will take charge of the situation thereafter. How can the police do that? I'll leave that for you to reconcile, because I simply see that as not just enigmatic, but absolutely dotish, foolish.
To regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. And in so doing, we look at the issues of poverty,
Let's take that one, poverty. What the police going to do? Have a bag of money and give it out to all the people on the East-West corridor from Diego Martin to Lavatel? Is that what Hines is saying? That they could form a police policy around that poverty? When the very poverty itself is what is engaging the need for police? And the government has the responsibility to create, of course, employment opportunities and so on. The police has to do that. Is that what he's saying? Let us make some sense here. Let us be real. Mental health. All them police for them madmen around town. A whole set of them have become displaced, and when they commit a crime, petty crime, maybe they occupy the pavement, or maybe they may snatch somebody, let's say grocery, and the police say, look, the madman, and the people say, look, the madman going down there, all shabby looking, smelling awful, the skin thick with muck. The police should want to take up such a person and put them in the police car, or even handcuff them, or even walk them to the station. The police should have blind eye to that and gone the way. This ass is saying that mental health could be part and parcel of a formula, and I call tonight and tell us that Ola Christopher, apart from talking about prayer and praying, she's now talking about what? The parents now. Nothing different. The more you experience, the more you live, is more and more things remain the same. Rowley said that already. Rowley castigated the parents and said that parents are sending monsters to school. Like Christopher come now on this. So is it some kind of relay of dotishness? They are so myopic and so out of it that they are unable to think creatively in order to address the problem of crime and criminality. Those who have the responsibility to address the matter. Listen to the madness Hines is saying, that the police will have a program, an anti-crime initiative. The police, not the Ministry of Education, not the Ministry of Social Development, not the Ministry of Agriculture, not the Ministry of Youth, not the Ministry of Sports, and not the Prime Minister's office, and of course the ministry, and of course other supporting ministries, because they will still tell you that of course these are all of government approach, but the police must play the leading role in dealing with poverty, in dealing with mad people. What an ass.
Substance abuse.
Substance abuse. Who is responsible for that? The police. Substance abusers will, of course, because they may infringe the narcotics laws of the country, the drug laws of the country, and therefore will simply hold those persons who are engaged, whether at the consumption level, or at the intermediary level, or at the jug mule level, or at the source level, whether it coming from Venezuela, Colombia, etc., and Trinidad and Tobago being a transshipment or a place of destination for these narcotic items that would be emanating from the soils of these Latin American countries. What is he saying? What is he saying? As I said, precious nothing. How the police formulating a program to address mentally and substance abuse individuals?
Sexual victimization.
Sexual victimization. He is saying that the police will devise a mechanism. Listen to this buffoon.
And we design policing methods that will equip law enforcement with the capacity to assess and to treat with how these factors are impacting upon victims and offenders.
What is he saying? Victims and offenders now. So apart from the offenders, the police have to now to deal with the victims as well. And how poverty, substance abuse, people engaged, of course, in human trafficking. Just so we go tell we that people who, of course, didn't make use of their education, the police is to be responsible for that to impact and find a mechanism to address that problem as well, so that you could solve the crime problem in the country. Hold your tail, you damn fool. Let's continue. I mean, it is pathetic. It is irksome. It is debilitating. You listen to them ad nauseum to a point of you're being sick with the nonsense that they talk.
Offering you solutions to fighting our criminal scourge and curse.
Dr. Rowley warned the population about taking advice from those who propose to offer solutions.
I simply want to warn the population that half of the people who are offering you solutions to fighting our criminal scourge and curse, to fighting our criminal scourge and curse, are themselves contributors to the problem.
So what he is saying is that, listen, we are proven failures. We are proven collectively and individually utilizing our financial and other resources and having the institutions that we can, of course, exert some influence. We have failed. That's what Rowley is saying. We have failed. However, don't take any other person's solution. That is the best that the country could muster up, because we are doing it and we have failed. So nobody else could be successful. Hold your tail, Rowley. When the NAI was in government, when the UNC was in government, murders reduced. They tell him about. And don't, you see, these fellas has the audacity and the temerity. You want to hit them one blasted clout for the level of stupidity and belief that somehow the population will accept that kind of hogwash and diatribe. I mean, don't accept, and half of them telling you something else. You could produce a document that the MLIO produced, the people of Laventil produced, 1,000 pages. And I was invited to address the National Security Council. You could do that, Rowley, but you telling people do not take on others who are much more qualified and demonstrate the ability, of course, to address the problem of these young people and the hogwash that you're talking about. You go to the pharmacy or the hospital and tell the doctor, give me a surgery to make me immune from crime. You damn asses. Come on.
Speaker, as I was telling you.
Listen to him.
As I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue. But the Prime Minister made no such declaration. I listened to the Prime Minister's communication with the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the world, which is recorded. Madam Speaker, as I was telling you, the Honorable Prime Minister recently announced and directed this country as its leader to regard crime and the crisis of violence as a public health issue.
Dr. Rowley said violence is a specialist area, revealing that experts were involved in treating with the issue before the pandemic. He added that the section will be revisited soon.
The people of this country are quite correctly holding this government accountable to secure the country and to make you feel safe. You're losing the war against the criminal element. But you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who.
So early in the game, he has accepted the fact that the government has failed. Today, he is telling people, don't study anybody else. What he has to offer is of course better than what anybody else could offer. But yet still, everybody else, whether it be the NAI, whether it be the UNC under Pandey, whether it be the UNC under Kamala Prasad Bisesa, has performed as far as the reduction and addressing crime and criminality is concerned, much better than them. But he is today telling us, after he said that he has failed, he's telling us, don't study them. Well, I say, the man is not just bipolar, but everything he says, don't do or do, you do the opposite. The antithesis of what he is proclaiming. So when he says, don't study anybody, know well to study everybody else, including, of course, the corridor transformation and all the other initiatives that would have been taken, where I am, of course, have been associated, because it's the only salvation. This man really wants Trinidad and Tobago to end up a failed state, and of course, go to hell in a gasoline-soaked paper bag as a banana republic. That is what this man is heading for. This man mad. Get the hell out and get the hence, Rowley, and all of you blasted Hitlers and criminals.
We're taking the advice from you, the people, and when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. When you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do.
Don't challenge us, we know.
When you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do.
You get it already in Tobago. You get it already in Tobago.
When you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do.
Of course.
You know what to do. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people, and when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people, and when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country
where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people, and when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do. When you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do.
Yesterday, of course, we have come to the end. I trust that you appreciate tonight's, of course, exercise. And, of course, we continue tomorrow morning on the ground report. Andy, Mike, and myself. And don't forget, we are back here tomorrow night. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. As we look at solutions to the problem, they clearly have a predilection, like the curse, to only offer pain, ache, agony, and then of course pat themselves on the chest for doing their best. Whilst of course Trinidad and Tobago goes to hell in a gasoline-soaked paper bag. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Bye bye.
Mothers just hold their head on ball, and them woman stronger than a wall. Iron she daughter, son in jail for manslaughter. Too bad for the PNM black boys, no bail. That's the black man's choice. Like Shadow say, poverty is hell. She little girl child belly start to swell. Some say life is a cycle, but don't draw she no circle. Where will it all end? Only time could tell. Simpson measuring a coffin. One night in bed you're sleeping, next night is a wake that you're keeping. So you're praying to win the lotto, not to hear voices from the ghetto. Crying, 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 crying. Voices from the ghetto. From the ghetto. We are not a forgotten people. Hear our prayer. With dented pride they soldier on. Revolutions based politicians born, and often their tragic story brings a journalist glory. No wonder they view the world with scorn. from since the day they born. Some call them rebels without a cause. These social victims of unjust laws, but yet they christen the heroes, renegades, desperados, forever knocking on heaven's doors. Hear me? Steel band music shatters the silence, harmony to conquer the violence. Big men run when cops approach, fighting for scraps with the cockroach. Young Turks, they're tough protecting, almost every young girl expecting. So tomorrow begs to no borrow, there'll be another voice from the ghetto. Crying, Lord, crying, oh, crying, yeah. Voices from the ghetto, crying. Pity ko, mama, crying. Pity ko, papa, crying. Voices from the ghetto. Social amenities, Lord, heaven knows. Opportunities, well, them always close. Can't get work once it white collar. So if you can't stretch your dollar, it's later for you crack or smoke your pipe. You're short of dead from gripe. Life does rape dignity and pride, till there's only bitterness left inside. And every day is a hustle. Arguments are settled with muscle, till you're 6 feet deep by 3 feet wide. Children through life keep on drifting. It's something they're smoking or sniffing, or maybe they're trying to forget this life of misery and regret. No one to come to their rescue except Capleton and Boujou. So they boom boxes the Lego, the drunk out voices from the ghetto. Crying, 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 Lord, Lord, voices from the ghetto. Crying, 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 voices from the ghetto. Crying. I was born and bred in the ghetto. I know what I'm talking about, you know. I'm from the ghetto. Crying, crying, voices from the ghetto.